Well, tonight at 11, the identity of a man found on the property of suspected serial killer Herb Baumeister. He was linked to one bone. Now, one bone and thousands of remains recovered on a Westfield farm in the mid-90s. Tonight, could investigators be on the verge of connecting more of those dots? While our Emily Longnecker spent the evening in Frankfort with that man's sister as she prepares to find out.
It's one of the worst things that I've went through.
When Janie Brock's older brother, Manuel Resendez, disappeared in 1993 after a night out in Indianapolis, a sick feeling started growing in her stomach and never went away.
It was the not knowing that was really, really bad, because you knew something bad had happened. You just didn't know what it was.
And Janie and her family wouldn't know for 3 long years.
What was heartbreaking was my mom being in the hospital, and that was her last day, and that's what she asked me to bring back, was my brother, so he could come and see her in the hospital.
But that never happened.
And then she died, so.
Instead, police found Manuel's remains, along with those of at least 10 other men, here on this Westfield property in 1996. Investigators believe all of the remains belong to men who were victims of suspected serial killer Herb Baumeister, who lived on the sprawling farm property with his wife and 3 kids. Baumeister was never charged with the murders. He took his own life before police could finish their investigation. Forensics teams were able to identify the remains of 8 different men, including Manuel.
It was just part of his jaw.
Investigators believe, though, at least 26 men may have been killed and buried on Baumeister's property, victims who have yet to be identified.
I'm actually worried about the ones that don't know. It's been 26 years for them. You know, I found him after 3 years, you know, at least part of him. But there's people out there that don't know where their sibling, their son, whatever relation, what kind, you know, however they're related, that needs to be found.
This goes back to Cool Creek.
In the past 15 years, the person who owns the property now has found more bones and fragments and turned them over to the Forensic Anthropology Lab at the University of Indianapolis, where 10,000 samples are right now that don't have identifications. This week, Hamilton County's newly elected coroner announced a push to identify more of those remains, calling for people with male family members who went missing from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s to submit DNA to see if there's a match. Janie Brock has volunteered to give a sample.
They're going to take some DNA and get the rest of his remains if they're there.
It's not easy for Janie. The sick feeling in her stomach is back.
It brings up, you know, all the anxiety, all the calls, and trying to figure out where he was at, and not knowing what to do. You know, it brings all that back up.
But this sister is determined to do what she needs to do to make sure her brother's remains are back with his family, where they belong.
It's very important to me. I thought this was all we had, and so I was okay with that, but to find out that maybe possibly no, you know, I just want the rest of him.
Wow, you just think of the families there. Thanks to Emily for bringing us that story. Now, in just 2 days, we'll see a new step in the Baumeister investigation. Sunday, cadaver dogs will search Fox Hollow Farm for the first time. We're told the dogs are from a volunteer group. 13 News will have a crew there as well. You can see our coverage starting Sunday at 6.